Gold, with the gold price making higher highs somewhere around 1870 right now. Perhaps it's time to have a look at a couple of interesting gold miners. And today we're going to have a look at Kinross and Yamana, both around the $5 billion market cap, perhaps in the top 10 largest miners in the world. Last time we looked at Kinross, we actually split their reserves and resources into a couple of representations, one with the totals and one excluding their property in Russia. By now, Kinross has already sold off all their assets in Russia, so there is relatively less concern about that jurisdiction. As usually, let me remind you that this is a fundamental valuation which turns out to work generally in the longer term. Perhaps over the next couple of years, we might expect share values to fluctuate around our valuation given the gold price as well as other factors, such as the amount of reserves and resources in the ground, debts, taxes, number of shares outstanding. As we look at the value per share, we do take into account time value of money, so we use 5% discounting for that, and we do take into account the insider shares as those align the motivations. And in our valuation model, what we look at is the discounted per share value after all-in sustaining costs, long-term debts, and taxes. Starting with the gold price, as usual, I'm going to look at three scenarios for gold price. With the balanced scenario, plugging in the gold price of only $1,800 per ounce. We're actually already above that. Conservative scenario plugs in the gold price of only $1,600. So it's pretty conservative, over $200 below current price. So this sort of valuation would show you the level of risk you might expect if the gold price just drops out of bed here. And our optimistic valuation is only $200 above the balance scenario at $2,000 per ounce, which is nowhere near outlandishly optimistic. To be honest, over the next perhaps a couple of years, I do expect gold price to be significantly higher than that. And let me remind you that this valuation are based on their Q3 2022 reports. Even though we are already in January 2023, the miners haven't prepared their annual reports for last year yet. So stay tuned for the updated look on a range of miners, perhaps over the next few weeks, as their annual reports for 2022 get published. Next, moving on to the reserves and resources that Yamana and Kinross have. We'll look at proven and probable as well as measured and indicated resources, but beyond what we see on the screen, there are also inferred resources, which we don't plug into our model, into our valuation. Again, making all of our valuations, even the optimistic scenario one, leaning that much towards the conservative side. So for gold, Kinross has nearly 27 million ounces of proven and probable reserves of gold and nearly as much in measured and indicated resources of gold. They also have silver, around 23 million ounces of reserves of silver and around 39.5 million ounces of measured and indicated resources of silver. Yamana has gold, silver and copper resources with 13 million ounces in reserves of gold and 14.5 million ounces in resources of gold. Yamana has over 104 million ounces of reserves of silver and additional nearly 51 million ounces of resources of silver. And Yamana also has over 6.6 billion pounds of copper, that's in proven and probable reserves, and nearly 1.4 billion pounds in M&I resources of copper. Looking at the costs, Kinross cost per gold equivalent ounce is at $1,240 per ounce, which is quite a bit higher than Yamana's costs at only $1,080 per ounce. Kinross also has significantly more debts at nearly $2.5 billion in debts, while Yamana has well under $800 million in debts, actually at $774 million in long-term debts. Again, all of these numbers are by Q3 2022. For taxes, I just assume a flat tax rate of 20% for all miners just to simplify and speed up the calculations. Moving on to shares outstanding and discounting, Kinross has 1.29 billion shares outstanding, out of which 0.38% are in insider hands. And at current annual production, proven and probable reserves are expected to last for around 14 years. And if we add only half of measured and indicated resources, this mine life will extend to around 21 years. Looking at Yamana, they have 961 million shares outstanding, out of which 0.37% is in the insider hands. Reserve life is at 14 years as well, and adding half of the resources will stretch this mine life to around 22 years. And I will apply a discount rate of 5%. Perhaps 5% is not really enough to reflect all of the risks of the industry. So let me know down in the comments below what would be the discount rate that you would apply. I look through every single comment that I get, and by the way, I do appreciate you hitting that like button and sharing this video with your friends. Finally, let's have a look at our valuations, starting with a conservative scenario where we plug in the gold price of only $1,600 per ounce, and we'll look at the value of only the reserves in the ground, excluding any of the resources. So looking at the discounted per share value after all-in sustaining costs, long-term debts and taxes, Kinross comes at a bit under $3.3 per share, and Yamana comes at a bit under $7.8 per share. Next, let's move on to our balanced valuation, where we plug in the gold price of $1,800 per ounce, but we still look at only the reserves, proven and probable reserves in the ground, excluding any of the measured and indicated, never mind inferred resources. That gives us a discounted per share value after all-in sustaining costs, long-term debts and taxes of just under $5.7 for Kinross and just under $11 for Yamana. To be honest, Yamana is kind of interesting here. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about Yamana versus Kinross. And lastly, looking at the optimistic scenario, let's plug in the gold price of $2,000 per ounce, and we value proven and probable reserves as well as only half of measured and indicated resources, never mind any of the inferred resources. That gives us a value of $11 for Kinross and over $16.1 for Yamana. So there you are. Curious if we're going to see these prices sometime during 2023. Again, let me know down in the comments below. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.